sometimes I get here and I listen to the beginning, like the first song and then the inspiration. And I wonder, what the hell did I even write my talk for, because you said it all once again, you've done that before. And so in truth, I don't have much to say. So we can let Bill have said it all. No, but these past 4 months have been a fog for me, y'all. Some of you know I had some stuff happen, and then I've kept mostly to myself. And I've gone to my classes, and then I go home and I pet my cats and I feed them and I read Louise Penny mystery novels. Love her. I've already anxiously waiting for her next book that comes out, I think, in October or something. I play games on my tablet, watch TV. I haven't prayed that much, haven't meditated that much. And I don't feel lonely or alone as much as I feel disconnected from spirit, much like the song and much like what you had said. But this isn't really about what you can do to get reconnected. This is more about me, like they all are. A month or so ago, I was listening to another speaker. His name is Mark Anthony Lord. I'm going to lower this. Is that all right? And Mark was a candidate for the Center of Spiritual Living for the senior minister position, and he decided to withdraw. But he did his candidacy talk. And during that talk, he told a story about how he got pulled over for speeding. And remember, his name is Mark Anthony Lord. And the officer asked for his driver's license, and Mark was all dressed up, and he was going to a church. And the officer said, "So where are you headed?" As he's looking at the driver's license, and he looks at Mark and he says, "Are you a minister?" Like a little question. Mark says, "I am a minister." And he said, "Well, what's your favorite Bible verse?" And Mark said, "Trust in the Lord." And the officer looked at the driver's license again, and he kind of chuckled, I guess. And he said, "Well, just slow down, because the Lord does great things, but in small ways." And so Mark just laughed and he went on with his talk. But that talk got me thinking, because well, we know that Mark isn't the Lord. He is a Lord, although he is an aspect of the divine, like as we all are. But that's a clever way to get out of a ticket, for sure. But my name, on the other hand, was chosen. And it got me thinking about some of the things I had been going through. My birth name is Barbara Jan Blashill. And I was named after my aunt because I was born on her birthday. If I had been a boy, I would have been called Robert. And my immediate family called me Barbie my whole life. In fact, they still struggle with Katherine even after 30 years. And but my extended family called me Bobby, and all of my friends. So growing up, from a little kid until I was an adult, I was called Bobby. You can hear the Minnesota accent, can't you? Bobby. And but until I left Minnesota in 1982 and I moved to New Mexico, and I decided to call myself Barbara. I thought it was time to grow up, but I never felt like a Barbara. In fact, I never felt like a Bobby or a Barbie, for that matter. And I was always disconnected as a kid, separate from others, kind of apart from others. Kate was easy. And when I decided to change my name, Kate was just easy. But what I didn't know is that Bobby was still lurking in the background. And when I graduated in 1980 with my bachelor's, and my partner and I decided to go on an adventure and move to Alaska, no one questioned it. I didn't have to explain it anymore. And on our way back to the lower 48, I decided to change my last name. And I came up with Greysen. It's a long story, and I'm not going to make you listen to it. But so now my name was legally Katherine R.B. Greysen. And even though my mom, until the day she died, would go, Barbie, I mean, Kate. Barbie, I mean, Kate. I think she actually forgot that my middle name was Jan, and she started calling me Barbie Kate with great frequency. The point of this is that we can change our names. We can change our locations. We can take these geographic escapes, but who we really are always comes back. It's always in the background, waiting for an opportunity to kind of meander out when we least expect it, which might be in traffic on the way to Asheville or on the way home. It might be behind a slow car coming up Coe Pass. It might be someone in the grocery store. It might be someone who didn't like my Resist rainbow t-shirt the other day in Ingalls. It can be a lot of things. It can be the gas prices. It can be the politics, but there's always something waiting, in a sense, that will trigger us and allow something from our past to seep through, something that we think we have conquered or overcome. And I ran from my past for a very long time. And it wasn't until I was back living in Albuquerque, going to graduate school, and I joined the Science of Mind Center, that I learned about affirmative prayer, or treatments as they call them. And every day when I was running, every day I would say, I am Katherine R.B. Greysen. I am Barbara Jan Blashill. I live in the universal flow of abundance and grace. I am an aspect of the divine. I know exactly who I am because I felt disconnected. I felt separate, like I didn't know who I was, especially after my mom died. And so I would say that over and over and over. I live in the universal flow of abundance and grace, knowing exactly who I am. I am one with the divine. And with that affirmation, I was able to really sit down and finally reflect on and forgive who I was, who I am, and who I had been. It was a long process, and I literally did this 70 times 7 thing out of the Bible, where you write it over and over and over and over again. I have pages that I still have. I don't ever look at them, but I look at them, and I don't read them, and I think I did that. And I remember what that felt like. But it's not always easy to come to terms with our past, because we have to not only look at ourselves, but everyone that we're in contact with, everyone that we have a relationship with, and what the content of those relationships meant, and why some of those people kicked me out of their life or just disappeared. Like, what was it? What was my responsibility in those relationships? And so I raised that question again: who are we? Are we our names? Are we our jobs? Are we our titles, Reverend, Doctor? Are we the children we raise, the cars we drive? Are we any of that? Or are we more than that? Or is that also part of us? I believe that we're that, and we're also more than that. And it's all perception and choice. When Thoreau was in jail protesting a social injustice, Ralph Waldo Emerson went to the jail and said, "Henry, why are you in there?" And Thoreau looked at him and said, "Ralph, why are you out there?" That's the question. In all of our despair and in all of our glory, we are simply the presence of the divine. We are simply God expressing on earth. And I believe this is true regardless of what we have done in our past. Joel Goldsmith wrote, "You are no more outside of God's government than the stars, the sun, the moon, the tides, the fish swimming in the sea, or the birds flying in the air. Relax into the awareness that there is a creative, maintaining, and sustaining principle of life, and it is holding you in its grasp." I love that. This is who we are. But the problem that we face is that we often encounter these dualities of consciousness, and there is no duality of consciousness. There is no good or bad. There is no right or wrong. There are only decisions and perceptions of our decisions that have been made. And it's how we respond to these challenges that inform us of who we are. Are we Thoreau or Emerson? It's all in your perception and your choice. There is only one power, and that power is the power of spirit. It doesn't overcome evil. It doesn't overcome our bad selves. It doesn't overcome sin or disease. We don't pray to release that from people. We pray that people find the peace within and the knowing of who they are to make the right choice for who they are. That's what we pray for. We allow people their process. So this power, this one power of spirit, isn't overcoming. It's a creative, maintaining, and sustaining power on its own level, and it should be. It must be. It is within us. So it has to be. Goldsmith also said, God is not to be attained, not to be gained, not to be sought after, not to go around the world looking for the Holy Grail. For the kingdom of God is neither here nor there. The place whereon you stand is holy ground, and the kingdom of God is within you. That's all we need. It might be that moment of self-reflection that you were talking about and that I've been discussing, but we don't need to go out and search for it. But I agree with you, Ashley. I've been looking for a spiritual home, something that can support me and build me, but not something that will save me. On this note, it's important to remember that there is no separation in consciousness. It only appears that way, that consciousness is essentially one, but it manifests and functions separately because it's the ego that makes us appear separate and separates us from spirit. And that is an illusion, but it's a necessary one. And it's part of the evolutionary journey of transformation. It's one that we all have to go on. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to repeat that path over and over and over with people, with friends, with geographic escapes, with buying the same type of car, who knows? Sometimes we still have to repeat the path and learn that process again. And it's not one that's achievable overnight. Sometimes people have these miraculous transformations, and sometimes it takes others more time. It doesn't matter because you are the divine in yourself. However long that transformation takes for you is exactly the right amount of time. Each of us is on schedule in which certain objectives must be met in order for us to progress forward. That's all paradoxical. It is. Without the illusion of separation, we cannot recognize our unity with one, and we cannot know the truth. Ego and our beliefs and attachments are what tether us to the material world and to each other. And it's what gives us our sense of identity. It's who we are as we walk through the world and how people perceive us. But by dismantling the illusion of ego and its beliefs, then the truth of who we are beyond who we think we are can be revealed. And that's something that I would like to discuss with you in a few minutes. It's only fear that holds us back from becoming who we truly are. Spirit, God, the divine, and the universal flow can only guide us if we put ourselves in that path, and that takes courage. Fear is an unreliable master. Its power is only relational to proximity. The further away we get from it, the less power it holds. I was watching a TV show. I'm not going to bother to tell you which one. It's not very good. And the star said that line, and it stunned me. I was like, and I, went back and I must have listened to that line 100 times before I finally wrote it down. Fear is an unreliable master. Its power is relational to proximity. The further away you get from it, the less it controls you. And here I thought you get all of your stuff from spiritual books, not something like Queen of the South, right? Anyway, I did tell you. Each of us is worthy of God's love. And I'm not talking about that's God above out there. I'm talking about each one of us loving ourselves and loving each other, because this is who we are. I believe and I know in my heart that by whatever name we call ourselves, in spite of anything and everything we have done, we are the power that controls our own environment. We are the aspects of the divine. It is our light that shines through and creates a path for others to follow. It is you and you alone who will set the limits to how far you will go and where you will go. Make a conscious effort to deal with limitations that are restricting your growth and your advancement as an active participant on this journey. What is needed is courage to change our ideas and release our thoughts that hold us back. It really makes no difference how much truth you know intellectually. It doesn't matter. It is that you only know it with your mind. It will not bring forth a spiritual recognition. And I can tell you from my own experience, when I live in the presence of God, there is liberty. And in the presence of God, there is freedom. And in the presence of God, there is a life lived fully. This is who we are. And so I urge you to listen carefully to the calling of your heart, for within it, it is the voice of God telling you at last it's time. Time to become who you really are. Time to relinquish limitations fostered by fear and embrace the truth that is conceived in love. And that's the talk. And then what I would like to have you do is a little bit brief for me. And what I would like is to get your opinions. So what do you think? Did any questions come up? Have you felt just not distracted or displaced, but disconnected from spirit? What did you do? How did you come back? And some of this leads to my next talk that I'm starting to work on, which is really, what is love? Because at the end of most of my talks, I say, all there is love and the rest we make up. And it's a nice little phrase that I picked up from some preacher back in Albuquerque. And I like it. All there is love and the rest we make up. And what does that even mean? What does it mean? There's just, do we really, 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 really love everybody? And
If
how
everything
do we
is,
get there?
if
is my
everything is love,
question.
we can't make up anything that isn't love.
Well, you want to unpack that? That's a nice phrase, but that's
No, but you
not
just said
anything
it.
different than what I just said.
No, I'm saying, yeah,
Oh.
all the rest we make up, all the rest we make up is
Yeah, but that's
because, well, the rest kind of implies that that's stuff that isn't love.
right. Right, exactly. But that's my next talk. What I'm wondering about is disconnected from spirit, feeling separate from, even when how many of you have felt alone in a room full of people? All of us, right? At some point. Not all of us are introverts. Not all of us are extroverts. And I know extroverts who go out and they're out, and then they go home and they sit in the bathroom and critique everything they said, And I just wonder, because I don't go out because I've already critiqued myself. So it's like, I don't have to go out there and like prove it, but I'm just wondering, how do you dismantle your good holding this thing?
Is that good?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. It probably sounds kind of corny, but in my head, when I get all twisted around, I go someplace by myself and I picture, like in my mind's eye, that I'm on this raft and there's some like holy sort of being or something there with me, although we're not communicating. And I just kind of melt down. I'll have a fit, I'll scream, I'll break the raft. If I'm angry, I'll like destroy it. I'll say everything that I'm feeling, that I'm so angry or I'm so hurt, or it's not the way I thought it was supposed to be. And I watch it. So like I watch a picture in my mind's eye, and sometimes I just like destroy the raft and there's nothing even to hold on to, or people have come on the raft and I've kicked them off and I've done horrible things on that raft. It's like I've expressed everything that I feel inside. I'll cry. And after I'm all done, it's like kind of there I am. I'm just I'm fine. I'm good. I can hear the water. That loving sort of presence didn't care that I just did that. And that's like my little process. And I do that all the time. It works for me so far.
I like
That's,
that.
oh, thanks.
I like that.
Yeah, that's a great way to transmute it there, like personally, when I'm in a mood or if I feel disconnected, I will just kind of find something that's kind of beautiful in my immediate surroundings and kind of like feel love for that. And then that usually works for me. I mean, sometimes it comes back around, but it's usually less and less each time. But yeah, something along those lines.
That reminded me a little bit of when sometimes when I feel disconnected, if I just go outside, that's very helpful by myself, and like in nature and just kind of we have a farm. So like lately, if I just go outside and look at the animals, and it just watching them and doing their thing and just living their life and having no worries, really, that really helps me connect. And then also I've been doing meditation for a couple of years now, and that also really helps. Like if I don't do my meditation, I feel very disconnected. And yeah, it stresses me out, which is so funny, but it really, the actual meditation is just so helpful for me to kind of maybe disconnect from the ego to realize that voice is not actually me.
Right.
So
It's amazingly difficult to get back to meditating when you quit.
Yeah.
It's really hard, actually, harder than I thought. And when people would say that to me before, I'd say, just sit down,
yeah.
just sit. And I sit and time goes by and I can tell you, I haven't been meditating. I haven't been doing anything. So I just wonder, and I know some of it's the anesthesia part that, pardon?
I said, oh God, yes.
Yeah, and so something I never would have tried to blame anything on, but what it's done is have me take a new look at who I am, where I'm going, what I have to say. And I mentioned that before as well. This is the benefit. So I've been trying, I've gotten up to 5 minutes.
5 minutes is better than 0 minutes.
I know.
Yes. And it's a practice.
And more frequent 5 minutes.
Yeah. So you all meditate. I don't.
Mhm.
Never been able to, and I'm not even gonna attempt to anymore. I'm sure I'm loud enough. Well, I got a pretty loud voice. Oh, so I don't meditate. It just doesn't work for me. I've tried it a bazillion times, but what does work for me, like last Sunday or whatever Sunday I didn't come, I went down to my vegetable garden, and I tell you that for me, I was in a very bad, dark place because certain things that are going on right now, loss, which comes back up again, and I'm not expecting it, and there it hits me, and it's like, you know what I'm talking about. And so I just go down to the vegetable garden, and I got all 8 beds, they're pretty big, weeded. And I'll tell you, when I got done and I turned the water on to water the vegetable garden, everything was perfect again. Not perfect, but everything was all right in the world again.
Right.
For me, because that's how it works for me. For
Right.
somebody else, they probably hate weeding and going, you're out of your mind. Weeding, not for me, but it works for me. So that's,
Sorry, do you think that's because
Just random wondering, do you think that's because sense of accomplishment, like, or were you in the flow when you were reading, like,
because I'm one with God.
yeah, I was just wondering.
My God. I don't know about anybody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Marna on FaceTime says that listening and playing music connects her and plugs her in. And Denise says that journaling helps her to release.
Oh, yeah, of course. I didn't know that you guys were FaceTime.
Yep.
Oh.
Zoom. Actually, it's Zoom. Right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I'm used to sitting in here and the camera right in my face. I didn't even look at the camera.
Hi.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough question because, oh, yeah. Whenever I feel disconnected, it always ends up being, ultimately, every time ends up being self-doubt. And rejection of the fact that I'm loved. And I think that's because when I had a really tough childhood and adolescence, and the end result of it was that I didn't love myself because I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel worthy of love. So now, if I feel disconnected, I just open my eyes to the things that have always meant that God is present to me and he's acting in my life. And once I recognize that, once I see that, all the doubt goes away. And usually that comes in the form of seeing things that are coincidental, things in my life that indicate that wouldn't happen if there wasn't some force behind it, or at least I recognize it to be that way, and that's all that really matters. And once I recognize that presence working, or just being with me and being me in this life, all the self-doubt disappears and I feel centered again. It's the only way I can put it.
Right. No, I understand. I hear what you're saying, because doubt's a huge. Sometimes I'm not sure if it's doubt or fear. And they're closely related, but they're distinctly separate. Anybody else have any comments? No? No, well, I appreciate you all and I love you all. Love is all there is. The rest we make up.